The prophecy is that if we don't change our actions or directions, we are going to be heading on catastrophe. That doesn't say
Ah,
nice, but we can change the future.
so hi, Soul Family, and welcome to my channel. I'm your host, Haji, and this is Amazing Alien Stories. Our guest today is Samuel Chong, famous Samuel Chong. Samuel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me here.
Okay, so I'm going to let Samuel jump straight into his story and explain about his experience with Michelle and the Thiaoouba Prophecy.
Yes, so my name is Samuel Chong. I'm a certified court interpreter and a Chinese translator in Los Angeles. I came from China originally. I was born there in 1978. Since I was young, I was always fascinated by space and the mysteries of the world, such as the Bermuda Triangle, who built the Great Pyramid, and near-death experiences, for that matter of fact. I was so intrigued at the stories of people who had near-death experiences, and I really wanted to find out what really happens after a person dies. And is that just something that just ends there, or there's something else to it? So that's my childhood fascination. I was also reading a lot of magazines in China about UFOs or ETs. At that time, it was very popular in China, and I had a subconscious mindset is that if we can learn from the ETs, people who can visit us, and because of their advanced technologies, we can just progress at a much faster pace. So I was always looking for information provided by ET contactees. Um, After I came to the US in 1999, I improved my English skills and I was always looking for such information. And I read a lot of books in this subject matter, and nothing really shocked me as much as this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, because even though in the very beginning I thought it's just another book that I read, when I read into the chapter on who is Christ, that really amazed me so much that I really wanted to delve into the book further and do additional research. And after I read the chapter, the postscript, the author, Michel Desmarquet, says there are more incredible things that he was not allowed to write in the book because we were far from understanding them. I was pretty upset, actually. I was curious and upset. I thought this book has already provided amazing details, verifiable facts that would shock a lot of people, especially the Christians and also a lot of the people who are not into subject matters like the paranormal. And what else that he knew but couldn't tell us? So I decided to track him down, and I found his like he was living on an island in Vietnam at that time, but I didn't have his exact address. So I grabbed a photo taken by a tourist who accidentally met him, and a photo of his bungalow. And I flew to Vietnam to that island and showed the photo to the taxi driver and asked him to take me there. And he took me there on a second try. That's how I met Michel Desmarquet. He was a very private person, very eccentric person. He didn't want to be bothered, so he was really aloof to me in the first 2 or 3 days or so. And then he thought I could be useful to him because he showed me a contract he signed with a Chinese publisher, and he paid $2,000 for the royalties. And I mean, he got $2,000 from the publisher for the royalties, and he never heard back from the publisher. He wanted me to follow up with them and to see whether the book was published in China or not. It turns out that they decided not to have the book published because of the censorship in China. And he asked me to find a different publisher, and I had a different publisher to get a book published in China and Taiwan. It became a bestseller in both places.
Okay, okay. So I mean, when I first saw your story, it was on the Jeff Mara podcast, and I was like, this guy is a man of action. That's what thou called Michelle at one point, but you are the true man of action. Like who reads a book, just a random book somewhere, and then gets so excited about learning more or diving deep into it, and then tracks down the author, and then stays for 2 or 3 days because the author's like, get out of here, go away, leave me alone. I mean, you are just amazing, absolutely amazing with your desire to truth seek. Like we talk about truth seekers, Samuel, you are the number one truth seeker probably on this planet right now, because you really, really went about trying to get the information that you were trying to get. And it sounds like, I mean, anybody else might have given up at any point during that trip, on the flights, in the taxi, like the first time he said no, go away, but you really stayed true to it. And it sounds like you guys started to grow a certain sort of relationship. From what I've seen of the videos where he starts to actually, and you can explain when he does this, but I saw videos of Michel when he began to start giving more information, not stuff that he couldn't tell, but just like details about how thou looked, how they looked, and stuff like that. So you can tell from the videos his attitude, like he kind of was that kind of grumpy Frenchman type thing, So I'm sure you definitely had to like work around that, whatever. But you guys, he started to see that there was something more, and it seems also as if the thou and the Theobans, like what do they call themselves? Because that wasn't clear in the book either. Like what are they called?
Theobans.
Theobans, okay. That the Theobans were connecting with him telepathically, and they knew about you and were happy with what you were doing to get it published, to get the book published.
Yes, yes.
So that brings up one question that I'd have as well. Well, the first question is, in meeting with Michel, did you feel like once you started to know his character and more about him, his past, did it make you feel even more sure that he had this experience? Or, what was your response to that?
After I read a book, I always believed that the things happened to him, what he experienced was real and authentic, because there are so many verifiable details in the book, like who really built the Great Pyramid and what happens in the Bermuda Triangle, and what's the story of Jesus and Christ in the Bible, what really happened over there in the past, and also Moses during Exodus. Everything seems to be very logical and reasonable to me, having a logical mind here. I work with a lot of lawyers and doctors, by the way, professionally. So it never I never had a doubt that it's something hallucination or something. So when I met him, I was trying to get or extract information from him about the things that he didn't put into the book. So I never had a doubt.
Okay, perfect. And I love your background. Like people, at first of it just seems like out of the like, where did this come from? But I'm the queen of random, so I love that when that happens in life, when you're doing something like accounting and then you're out chasing, UFOs, So it just shows how we can be, how diverse we can be as humans. But it also shows how your mind works. Like you're not going to just take anything. Like you want facts, you want information, So people who don't believe in this and they think of aliens, like, what are you talking about? That's so, out there. If there's anybody you can trust in this, is Samuel. Like you are somebody who, like you said, you deal with scientists, doctors, etc., and your mind already is very probably left brain, and yet you're still seeing things that match up here. So the other question that I had is, because of your connection with Michel, and before we really start diving into the book, because that's really what I kind of want to do, I do want you to express how he felt afterwards, because I know he went into a depression, and then how he passed. So I want you to get into that, and then we'll get into the book. But did the aliens at any point communicate with you, or do you have any experiences where you felt as if they might be trying to communicate with you?
Well, they never communicated with me. At least so far, I haven't received any messages or any contacts. Because in my subconscious mind, I always want to live a full life here on Earth on my own without their assistance, unless it's absolutely necessary, because I really want to do the best I can to change the future directions that we are going to, because the future is not fixed versus the past, which is fixed. So the future really depends on our actions. I really want to make our world a better world in the future by bringing all the people together through collective consciousness and to have spiritual knowledge, so that we can make the right decisions for some of the things that might happen in the future.
Yes. I mean, when I look at you, I think starseed all over. Like you're definitely not from this planet, originally, But do you feel like you're connected to that particular alien race, or do you feel like you're connected to any alien race? Do you feel like a starseed at all?
Well, I always felt that I think differently from a lot of my childhood friends, and my behaviors were a little bit kind of strange to them, including my middle school friends in high school or middle school. Like
Mm.
they focus on the things that are immediate and imminent. I focus on things that are more far out. So
Yes,
this is
yes.
just me. I don't know why. And I think in my some of my dreams, I was determined to change something, and I thought in my dreams I thought that was easy, and then I was told to experience it.
Yes, yes. I definitely get that feeling from you that you came because I mean just think about what you're truth seeking and you're trying. It's not like it's just truth seeking because you just want to know what's going on and you want to, get a handle on it. You want to help this whole entire planet get better, which is not an easy feat, and it's not most people don't care about that. Most people care about family and a house and a nice car and having more than their neighbors. Like that's kind of generally how most materialistic people think.
Mhm.
And you're thinking, I want to save the world, whatever I can do, I'm here, and that is if you know the raw material, and I'm going to mention it. So hopefully you know about the law of one, the raw material. I'm assuming that you do, right? Yes, of course.
Yes, I do.
So you know service to others and service to self. So I would say you were definitely service to others with your mission. you know
Thank you.
yes. All right. So how did Michel deal with this when he came back, and why do you think that he might have gone into a depression?
Well, people who knew Michel Desmarquet tell me that Michel had a very kind of kind of eccentric personality, and he got excited and agitated very easily, and then after he came back, uh, he tried his best to tell everyone what happened to him. Most people didn't believe him. His wife didn't believe him. His daughter didn't believe him, even though his son did, and his most of his friends didn't believe him. That caused him a lot of psychological issues. It's just
Mm.
like he learned about what's going to happen, and when he tried to tell everyone else, like there's another kind of agenda, or is the word does not appear like what you think it appears. Most
Mm.
people just didn't take his words, so he was really frustrated, and he that caused his marriage. He had a divorce, and he had a major depression as well, and so that's a psychological breakdown. And some people say that like Michel Desmarquet, after he came back, he cried and shouted, saying that you don't know what they did it to me. I could have just lived a normal life. They destroyed my
Oh,
life here. So this is how he felt right immediately after he came back. So it's just like he was shown like a paradise, and
oh,
then he had to come back.
oh my God, you're about to make me cry. Like really? Oh boy. So I just want to send blessings to Michel Desmarquet, wherever his soul is. If you read the book, you know that he is, according to the book, I think he was last in the seventh density, world, and that he's a soku. I don't know how to pronounce that, but somebody who has gone up and down through the densities of planets. And let's just hope that wherever he landed, it was a paradise. It definitely was something that was worth the trials that he went through here. Because it sounds like, for starters, just so people know that this happened in 1987. Is that correct? The
Yes.
abduction? Okay. So just to give you a framework of what was happening in the world, et cetera. But you know, he had a lot of the symptoms of a NDEer, where they come back and their marriage, like I said, 70% of NDEers end up in divorce or something like that. So his marriage was on the rocks. His wife thought that he was away cheating for all the days that he was gone. It's like, I mean, like any other woman, that's dated a man, there's times that you go, okay, what's really going on? Where were you really? But when you come back and write a whole book with things that couldn't possibly, I mean, it wasn't like, was he a sci-fi writer prior to this? Was he like, who was Michel prior to writing this book? It wouldn't add up.
Right. He was just a landscaper who didn't know how to use technologies, and he was a regular person.
Yes. So that right there should have showed you that this man had an experience. And just to make it clear, like while I might question who these beings are and what their purpose is with us, just to make sure that I show both sides, because I see where it could be the good and it could be the bad. I have, in my mind, I totally believe that Michel had this experience. Totally. It just, if you have a logical brain, it makes perfect sense that this is what he experienced and he just wrote what he experienced, period. And it just sucks that the people closest to him didn't support him in that, you know. And then it was at some point during the book, it expresses that that thou saw his life from beginning to end. And that's a question that I'll get into later about how much they could see, because I know that you mentioned before, and it also says in the book that they could only see up to 100 years in the future. But there were some things that to me questioned whether or not that was true or not, but I could have been reading it wrong. But so they saw his life from beginning to end. Of course, they didn't share that with him because who wants to know when they're going to die? It would just mess up everything. But he himself, I heard you say in other videos, is that he thought he would live for another 10 to 20 years, despite the depression and wanting to leave and go back to, you know, the planet and to a paradise. He thought that he had another 10, 20 years and then didn't have it. So can you express more about that? Like why he might have felt that?
Right. He told me that in his dreams he saw the number like 95 or 105 or so, and he thought he was going to live another like a long time. So that's why I didn't ask all the questions I had in my mind. I thought there will be another chance to visit him for the third time and maybe
Mm.
the fourth time. So he thought he was going to live a long time, but then after my second trip, I think 3 or 4 months after my second trip, after he revealed the secret that he didn't write in the book to me, and he passed away. He died of stomach hemorrhage, and but he was smiling on his in his bed and in the hospital. He was very
Mm.
happy to leave this world. He was actually looking forward to leave this world as early as possible because he believed that his mission of writing this book was accomplished already. So he wanted to leave the sufferings and
Yeah.
this. Yeah, he was very cynical towards the end of his years.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I can totally see how that could happen. I mean, if people have not read the book, you should definitely read it at least once, and you'll see why it makes perfect sense that this is how it worked out for him because he went to what was like heaven, an absolute heaven, and then had to come back to what was interesting that this is shared by the raw material in this book, the Thiaoouba Prophecy, is that they call Earth the planet of sorrows. Like, great, we're in the planet of sorrows. Good job, guys. Like, granted, and they say we're also the first density. So, I mean, granted, we're not all at this level. Like, there's definitely, you listen to Dolores Cannon and things like that. We have the people who came and to help, the volunteers, the starseeds, etc. But overall, we're at the bottom of the barrel. But we can get higher. It's a process of going higher in the densities. Um, so let me see what other question I had. So why the change in the names of the book? Why, I think it's called the Thiaoouba Prophecy, the Abduction to the Ninth Planet, and then the Golden Planet, or something like
Yes.
that. Yeah.
In the very beginning, to capture attention, to tell the story of his amazing experience, they wanted to be more sensational, so they titled it "The Abduction to the Ninth Planet." And
Mm.
then Dr. Tom Chaco decided to change the title to Thiaoouba Prophecy because at that time there was another book titled Celestial Prophecy. So they want to capture that attention because people were looking for prophecies. But Michel Desmarquet himself wanted to title the book The Golden Planet. So this is why, I have to use all three titles when the book is published on Amazon. So
No, and I like that. I like it if you finally showed all three because I was just like, what is going on here? But what is the Thiaoouba prophecy? Like, people who have read it and said, okay, I read it. I understand the planet is called Thiaoouba, but what is the prophecy?
well, the prophecy is that if we don't change our actions or directions, we are going to be heading a catastrophe. That doesn't say
Ah,
anyways, but we can change the future.
oh, okay. Got it. And we got so much to get into. I just want people to know that the things that are brought up in this book is not as detailed as the raw material, which is like off the charts. Like you can barely read it if you don't have, your brain is not, there enough. But with this one, it's definitely a good read. I write sci-fi and fantasy, so like I can see why people might think it's that. There's times where I read about especially when he gets to the planet. Like already you see a lot of just amazing things happening in the actual spacecraft, but when you get to the planet, it is just beautiful. And remember that Michel is not a writer. You know, he's just really just saying, this is what I saw. And apparently as he wrote it, he felt that he was being guided. So he probably was channeling, you know, Thao at the time as well. But it is just like, it is, if you think of Avatar, you know, like if you've seen the movie and you get that beautiful feeling of just fantasy and amazement and stuff like that, it is just off the charts, off the charts. So again, I want to make sure that it's clear that on one hand, I can go either way. You know, I've been I've been visited by the Greys from what I, you know, a couple of months ago. So I'm very much aware, without question, that we are not alone, you know. But I am also a very distrusting soul. So there's a lot of questions that I have, and I don't want to offend you at all. Just know that at any point I could believe that they are exactly what they say and just love it. But I want to make sure just for the safety of, because the same way you want to protect mankind, I do as well. They're annoying, but we need to protect them, right? We want to protect the people on this planet. So I want to make sure that people also get a clear understanding of where there might be some question marks and things that they could really focus on in the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that I love that Michel did it afterward in the book. He expressed his ways of possibly making the world a better place, things that we need to do. And then also not to make it a cult, because this easily could have become a cult very easily. And I think he saw that. And I love that he did his best to make sure that wouldn't happen. All right, so the first thing, first I'll just give you the chance to say anything else that you want before I start asking the questions or going into the actual parts of the book and the things that are brought up there.
Right. Just two things that he revealed publicly about the information not written in the book. One is about the Greece, the other is about the Sphinx in Egypt. So just to let you know.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I love that part about the Sphinx, because if you know Edgar Cayce, like I'm assuming you know Edgar Cayce as well.
Yes.
He mentions the same thing. A lot of his stuff was on point, a lot of his prophecies, and he says that at some point under the left paw of the Sphinx that we're going to find a lot of information, and it seems like there's a connection between what they're saying as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very interesting. So I guess for me, some of the things that made me question. Let me see where I can start here. Okay. And I didn't ask this question. I guess maybe I should have, but I feel like part of maybe your pre-birth. Do you believe in pre-birth plans?
Yes, I do.
And do you feel like this is part of what your pre-birth plan?
Yes. You know, I felt that way, and also I went to two psychics, the psychic twins, and also psychic Lin and psychic focus, and they both told me that I would be involved with a book of significance. And
Wow.
yes, they told me. You know, at that time I didn't really pay much attention about that because I when I went to them, I hadn't really encountered this book yet. And I thought, a book of significance? What book would that be? The Bible doesn't even seem to be that significant to me. I mean, I was very curious about that. And then I read this book, and it has to be my life mission.
Oh, wow, wow. And I didn't want to bother you to ask that, because I was going to say, have you seen a psychic, or have you done hypnotherapy? Because that would be great too, to find out who you were prior to this, you know?
Yeah, I only went to like two psychics. I tried to be hypnotized and to do a past life regression, but I wasn't able to be to get into that state.
Oh my God. Okay, wait, I'm getting goosebumps. Because here's what I think. I believe you're a starseed. I believe you came here for this purpose, but I also feel like there's certain things that if they found out, and this is why I've never done it either, if they really got into your psyche and started to do that, they would literally have to be blocked. Like they could not get the information that you have. So I'm not surprised at all to hear that. Wow, interesting. Okay. And even with this, I'm going to try not to get us into too much trouble. So I want to keep my questions, try to keep it. Okay, so I'm going to ask him just randomly, and if you don't have an answer, just say pass. But is the continent of Mu, right? Is it Lemuria? Is it the
Lemuria.
same? Okay,
They're the same, yes.
So Lemuria and Atlantis were around at the same time. Okay. Now, one of the things that they mention, it's just so much here. One of the things that they mention, okay, so just so that people understand, because again, if you don't read it, you're not going to understand what we're talking about, but so maybe read the book first and then come back to this interview. But they believe that there are nine. I'm going to start with this. They believe that there are nine planets to a solar system,
Yeah.
right? Which that idea in itself has brought me into so many spaces because as a child, I was taught, we even had a teacher who sang a song about the nine planets of our solar system. And if you look now, we have eight. So we went from nine to eight, which just shows you what science is all about, right?
Yeah.
They know everything, they don't. But so we have eight planets now because Pluto's not a planet. So I also did some research after reading that. I was like, wait a minute, do all solar systems have nine, only nine? And I, Wikipedia'd it and Googled it, and they, I've never seen more than nine. So if somebody knows differently, please leave a comment so that we can look into this. But they're saying that the ninth planet of any solar system is the highest level planet, right? And that's what Thiaoouba is for, I guess. But here's my question. So I'm getting to a question because this is what confuses me in the book, is that they make it seem, and when we get into all the details, they clearly have interfered with uh, our evolution from the beginning. Like since people came on this planet, they have been interfering to the point of creating whole religions. We'll get into that in a minute. Um, and they're saying that they are like the guardians of the galaxy, which is interesting. So guardians of the galaxy, or no,
One
wait,
of
wait,
the three. One of the three planets.
say it again.
So there are three planets that are guardians of the galaxy. They're one of the
Oh,
three. Yeah.
oh, okay, okay, okay. Was that in the book, or did you get that from outside the book?
It's in the book. There are three category nine planets in our galaxy.
Oh, okay, okay. So that's where I got confused because I was like, if unless they are the ninth planet and they're just hiding somewhere in our solar system, I'm like, why would they be able to
Mm.
to interfere with us so much?
So what happens is that so we have the solar system has nine planets, and other solar systems also have nine planets, and then the star, which is the sun, is actually the center of the solar system, and there are nine stars like the sun rotating or revolving around another bigger star, and then nine bigger stars revolve around an even bigger star until the center of the universe. So this is like a pattern to be proved by astronomers. And what Tao said about the ninth category is that in the universe, there are nine different categories of planets. Earth is a category one planet. Thiaoouba is a category nine planet. So in our galaxy, there are three category nine planets who are the guardians of the galaxy. And Thiaoouba is in charge of Earth and also other planets in their region. And so we are actually mentored by people from Thiaoouba throughout history. And but we all from different planets, like the blacks and the yellows came from a planet called Baccaratini,
Mm.
and then the Polynesians came from a planet called Arima X3, and the Jewish people came from a different planet called Hebra. And the Jewish people actually came from a category three planet, so they're a little bit different from the rest of the people. They came here about 12,000 years ago. So so it's a very interesting story, and some
Yeah.
of the things you can connect the dots, and you can, yeah, it's a very interesting
Yeah,
book.
yeah. And I want to say that for some things I definitely, and this is why I'm so skeptical because there are times where you get things that you know are the truth. Like it just resonates with you, or it could be proven. Like you wait a couple of years and it's proven. Like for instance, when they talk about the needles that were put out into space that the public weren't aware of, and that they had to clear those needles, right? You remember that part? So that was a very key part. But at the same time, I know that with any, with the negatives, like we have to know that there are negative aliens out there that they know much more than us, and they are capable of giving us a lot of positive and true information, and then putting in stuff that's not the truth. So we just have to be careful with that. But there's a lot of in this book that is just like, especially on the spiritual side, talking about the canal, like if they spoke about NDEs, and me being a researcher of NDEs, I have to confirm that a lot of what they said was completely accurate with the NDE. And in saying that the tunnel is really that psychic, I guess, link between yourself and your higher self.
Yes.
So that the light that you're seeing at the end of that tunnel is not God or something like that. It's just your higher self. And that's
Yes.
been confirmed by some NDEers. So that was a mess. I'm saying, so some things I just felt like, oh, this is awesome. But then there were other times I'm just like, what is happening here? And the things, so you explain why they would feel like they could lord it over us, that they are supposedly, out of the three, they are the ones, I guess we're their assignment, like we're under their guardianship. But then when, like I said, when I bring it to other things that I know about, so people talk about the Galactic Confederation that came up in the raw material. It comes up with a lot of people who are connected, saying that they've actually been in meetings of the Galactic Confederation, which is made up of innumerous, I think it's 50 something or more, I don't know, but different planets, people who consider themselves the guardians of the galaxy. So I was curious how, if it, at all, is it possible that those two things could coincide, or does one have to be wrong?
No, when I look at the some of the experiences of other people, I always try to see if they can provide specific verifiable information that we can verify that normally people didn't know about. And a lot of them cannot provide information or historical facts about what happened during Exodus, what happened to Jesus and Christ. And I have a very logical mind. I need foundations, specific proofs, information that can be verified. And it's just like building your credential. So I think unless they can provide such information, I think their information has to be discerned. So actually, over the years, over the last 2 years or so, I've been trying to interview people who have such experiences. And one of the people told me he claimed himself to be ex Illumin like originally from the Illuminati, the
Okay.
organization. Yeah,
Yeah.
ex-Illuminati member. And he told me that there are technologies that can impose certain scenarios, like hallucinations, into a person's mind, causing the person to think that they went through a certain experience, such as going to the moon and going to Mars and having this kind of experience in a secret space program. In
Mm.
fact, that's just a holographic
Yeah.
simulation experience. So he claims that this is what happened to a lot of people out there. I don't know what's going on, and I think it's possible that when you see so many people say that they're like uh, like different projects on different planets, I think
Mm.
it's quite impossible to be realistic because they have to solve a lot of issues that we have to solve, like the oxygen and also food and also like living necessities. It's hard to live on Mars nowadays. I mean, you just have to use your logical mind and common sense to see if those are real or not.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm surprised to hear you say this, because I mean, a lot of people could use that same logic to say that, Michelle's situation, experience didn't happen. Like
Mhm.
even within the book of Thiaoouba, they mentioned that the people of Aramo X, I think when they came back, I think it's Aramo X, that they created a establishment on the moon. And this is something
Yes.
that is confirmed by a lot of people, not that particular group, but they say that there have been installations on the moon and that people have seen that through remote viewing and things like that. So, you know, it, there's a point where, like you said, we just won't know. There's a point where we just, unless we are in that experience, we won't know. But I totally agree with this guy in regards to the technology to create uh was it holograms? Um,
Holographic
yeah,
simulation.
holographic simulation, because first of all, I see that as I started to really dive deep into NDEs, I started to say, wait a minute, this might be alien tech. Like it's just some things are just not matching up here. And I think that, if you look at the book, I mean, we're looking at a book right now where it said, and it made it very clear that if you remember what his time on the spaceship, when he was uh he was shown a simulation of them crashing into like an asteroid or something, and she
Yeah.
showed you like this is not even a tenth of what we can do. We can make you think, and especially, and she acted on his fear. That was another important thing that people have to understand. Fear not, get rid of fear, because I think that is definitely something that these technologies can work on. So get rid of any fear you have, start working on any phobias. because she was able, just with that little piece of fear that he was afraid that they might have a crash, create a whole scenario that was so real to him. It freaked him out when he saw that they were perfectly fine. And that should show you right there. If you confirm and you believe this book, then you have to believe what that guy is saying, and that these people really could be having these experiences that could either be having the experiences, or with alien tech that's advanced, just as advanced as the ninth planet or more, or more, where they can breathe on Mars, where they can have these installations under, because I think we'd see the ones on top, but at least within the planet, because we have installations in this planet, we do. Whether they don't, not to say that they have to be as exotic as what some people are saying, where like you have grays with whole installations of hybrids just ready to take over the world underground. But it could be as simple as the military bunkers, the DUMs or whatever they call it. Like that is for sure. People have been in that and they know they exist, So I think once we get into this category, we have to really broaden our mind that, and it's hard because it's a balance, broaden our mind that anything is possible, but at the same time, discern, all day discern, So getting back to the book, you mentioned, I'm trying to keep it in some kind of order, but you mentioned that Bakaterini. How do I say that?
Bakaterini, yes.
Okay, so that was exciting and new, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the Blacks and the Chinese live together happily, yeah.
Yes.
Well, for the most part, yes. For the most part, we did have some wars. We did.
Like Rush Hour.
Yes. See, I knew that movie was good. See? So for those who read the book, you understand that they were saying that the first two peoples that on this earth were the people from that planet. And it would be nice to know where they came from. Like, it's a lot of information that is just really not in the book, and you would love to have more, I would love to know how they started there. How did they evolve? Where did they evolve from, But we kind of made our way here. We kind of worked it out, and you guys saved us from yellow fever. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for providing a lot of meats and tropical fruits.
Oh, we were already working it out. Like, we definitely need to start coming together now, right? If people read the book, they know that. But the question here, so there is a question out of just that, is where, and this is the same question Michelle asked. So, I mean, people, I hope, don't get upset about anything we're going to say here. We're mentioning stuff in the book. We're not making this stuff up, okay? But where did the white race come from? Because even Michel himself said, I'm a Frenchman. Where do we come in all this?
And then he never put it in the book.
Yes, so that's what I mean. So like, when I say I'm a truth seeker, even if it's something that's going to hurt my feelings, I will say it because I want us to know the truth. I want us to start moving towards disclosure. And I saw that he mentioned at one point during, I guess, when Mew was around, that there was a white group, there wasn't a lot of them, and they started to devolve. Like, they weren't being able to work to expand regarding the tech, and they started to devolve. But they don't even explain where they came from. So it's like, that is very weird.
That's the question that I was going to ask Michel Desmarquet on the third trip, but it never happened. So I have to ask I'm going to ask people who knew him and to see if they can provide some answers. But according to this book, they kind of devolved in a very primitive state. And that's kind of, I don't know, like how people would perceive this information. And I don't know if they're going to be upset about it. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, and I noticed that about this book, like there are some things that definitely, like when we talk about, same sex, whatever, it's some things that would definitely upset people. And that's, like I said, I'm on the fence because there's some things, like I said, it makes me think, okay, who are these aliens? This is sounding very scary. And then there's some things that I'm like, okay, if they really wanted to like conquer the world or do something like that, they would be giving us a very easy to digest message, and they definitely weren't, and because then, okay, so we're staying in the genealogy of things. When they talk about, and you mentioned it already, when they talk about the people from Hebra, and out of the like 7 or 8 or 15, whatever scientists, it only ended up being 3, a man and 2 women. They literally say that, first off, that the story of Adam and Eve is not the truth, that it really was those 3 that started. So literally a threesome started the Jewish, or I don't know what you would call it, but the Hebrew, I'll say Hebrew so I don't get in trouble. So Hebrew group. And here's why I have some questions. So let's focus on this now. So, because this is where I really, I don't know if it's my own personal whatever, but this really started to like irk me. Like I started to say, I don't know how I feel about this, not to say that it's not the truth, but I started to definitely question things here. Because they're saying that they were a higher advanced from a higher advanced civilization. And just for people to know that if you are going from a lower to a higher, you cannot be on the planet for more than, is it 9 days before you die?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. If you're going from a higher to a lower, you can stay longer, but you don't want to because you're going to start having some bad luck,
Right. That's right.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was their case. They realized that they were on a planet that was much lower, well, just lower, and that they started to have bad luck and things started to go awry. My question, because this is where I start to have question marks about this particular alien group, because I just feel like it's a lot of egocentricities, and it just it could just be because they are superior and they're just being themselves, or it could just be like there really is a problem here. But they really talk about and this is something that's happening now. So this is very relevant to current events where they themselves are saying that the Jews are the chosen people and that they were chosen by them. So to be very clear, they were chosen by them for the purpose of that they knew that they were more advanced spiritually and they wanted to protect them in this world that they weren't supposed to be in. I'm going to come back to something on that. And then they go on, and we'll get into this all later too, is that they say that they were in the Old Testament, or I guess in the Bible in general, when they talk about the voice of God, that is really them, or like when they talk about the angels, etc. So this is going to mess up a lot of people's foundation here, right?
Yeah.
So, but it also means that they did a lot of meddling in the Middle East, and could they potentially be the reason for the problems that we have there now? Is my question.
Probably not, because to my knowledge, I think they wouldn't create wars. They wouldn't create wars on Earth. And they always want to lead us to peace and harmony and love. This is why they sent Jesus and Christ to us, and also let Moses out of to lead the Hebrews out of Egypt. So they would never start wars on us. I think this is just our own kind of greed, and also a lot of the issues that we have. So the world really doesn't work the way that it appears to be working, like to most people. Because I translated another book from German into English. It's called 334,000 Lies. It's supposedly written by the former chair of the Illuminati, the highest degree chair of the secret society that founded in Germany. So in that book, and I think that book describes what really happened of the author's personal experience as well, how he was just a college student and led into this secret society. They talk about how they influence the leaders of the world. They talk about how they practice and develop their psychic abilities to influence the mind of people. They talk about how they manipulate world affairs and politicians and create conflicts. And also, when I look at this issue, I think it's hard to convey this idea to a lot of people, because they just think that the wars just happen because there are ideology differences in people's beliefs. But if you really look at who profits from wars, they would be the military-industrial complex, the arm dealers, and also the weapon defense companies. So in the last few years, I mean, there were kind of a few years of peaceful period of time in which no war was started by the United States. If you really look at it, who would be really worried about that? That would be the defense companies, the people who make a living selling weapons. So their shareholders will be worried about it. So they needed to kind of create certain conflicts in the world so they can sell their products to the buyers. So I think people need to realize that there is a group of people behind everything, and running everything. And I do have kind of recent encounters with people who are familiar with such information and group. So I think it's quite revealing and shocking to a lot of people.
Oh, yes, yes. And I
Yeah.
think for a lot of people who go into these directions and down these rabbit holes, we know that this is happening. We can feel the manipulation, but the question is, who is it? Because they're not showing themselves. It's not the people that we're seeing. So that's why I say you got to discern.
In that
Okay.
case, I would suggest people to look up the book written by Dr. John Coleman, Coleman. The title of the book is the Committee of 300. So it lays out all the organizations and the people behind everything.
Oh wow. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. So before I get off of so we need to stay in the Hebrews and the Middle East for a while, because just FYI, people, when you read the book, you'll notice that the numbers that are on the screens in the spaceship are Arabic numbers.
Like the numerals that we
Yes, the
use.
numerics. Yes. So I mean, their connection to the Middle East to me sounds like off the charts. And it brings to mind another question that I'll get into in a minute about the Anunnaki. But before we move out of the Hebra, the people from Hebra, I want to just say that part of the reason why, because even Michelle, some of the questions Michelle asked, I was like, thank you for asking that question because it was in my head. And he said at one point, why didn't you just, instead of like kind of protecting this particular group because they're, supposedly chosen, etc. Why didn't you just send them back to their planet or to another planet of the same caliber? And they were like, well, we can't see past like 100 years into the future, so we weren't sure. We just assumed that they would either die off or this or that, etc. So here's my question. This is where I started to really dive deep, right? And hopefully you can answer this. So once they started to, however they decided to do, because starting with three people creating a very enclosed society means that there's some level of incest that's going to happen. But once they started to procreate, why, given the spiritual order of things, would you said they're from the third density, would third density souls be coming into bodies on a planet that is first density?
It's a very good question. The category 3. So why the souls of inhabitants of category 3 planet would come back to a category 1 planet and to live here, to be reincarnated here? So this is a very good question, and I think this is by choice and just to live in a very harsh environment. And I do think that once they die, when they pass away, their souls will go back to a category 3 planet. So they just want to maybe, for example, experience what it is like living on a planet of sorrows. I
Mm.
think this is just my personal opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm glad that you had an answer for that. Because to me, it's like I think it's just a big question mark in the book, another big question mark, because it's like that was their reasoning behind helping them throughout all these different trials and tribulations that they had, was that the assumption that, because obviously after what 100 years, the three founding Hebrews were gone, and then it was just their descendants. And it's like, who's to say that they still are at that category of spirituality, as spirits? It just doesn't make any sense unless they're worrying about the genealogy, like the physical trace, the blood, the whatever of the body. Is like, so it's a question mark. I think a question we don't have an answer to then, I guess. But in their mind, I guess, yeah.
I think genetics is a very large factor. They don't intermarry, so genetically speaking, they're having very unique physical characteristics, and that has to be combined with the astral bodies or the
Mhm.
souls. So it's a very complicated combination, and I think the people from Thiaoouba, they were thinking that the Jewish people would intermarry with people outside of their race so that they wouldn't have such a strong category 3 planet uh, characteristic
Yeah.
characteristics, so that they wouldn't have to worry about that. But they didn't think that they would keep their own race so pure.
And I see, and so I'm glad you mentioned that, like keeping the race so pure. Like there's a few different ways that people think about this. Like you have some indie ears that come back and say that any group that believes that they're better than others, or they're trying to stay like quote unquote racially pure, that they literally are going against the rules of nature. That nature itself wants, because we are one ultimately.
Yeah.
One's intermixing, intermarrying, all that kind of stuff. So that we're sharing as opposed to being selfish. And there's a lot in this book and with the people of Thou that seems very much like that whole Nazi Zionist, pure blood, pure this, better than this, superiority. There's enough of that made me feel uncomfortable. It's made me feel like something's not right here. Because to me, a very highly evolved spiritual being is just not that way. But that's my own way that I see it. Like I don't, I just feel like it was a lot of that happening there. Um, and it could have led to the depression that Michelle had. I mean, if you think about it, you go into a place where they're like, "Oh, we're great. We have the most perfect bodies. We have the most perfect this. We have this, da da da," and you guys are garbage. You know, it's like how do you really rise from that? But anyway,
I
so
think I
okay.
think it's analytical to like a elementary school student looking up to a professor. So I think
Mhm.
this is that kind of relationship, and but because the planet Thiaoouba was so perfect, like a heaven, like a paradise, Michel Desmarquet was so disappointed when he was told, "Oh, you can only stay here for 9 days, otherwise you will die. We cannot even revive you, even we can resurrect Jesus or Christ." And then he had to come back here because he didn't belong there. So this is
Mhm.
what made him so kind of psychologically
Yes, yes. And like I
uncomfortable.
said, so I mean, on one hand, like you said, if it really is the spiritual way that things are, then that's perfectly fine. It is what it is. There's rules. There's clearly universal rules. But
Mm.
if it's not, like I go back to the Jupiter Ascending, I think it's a movie.
Yeah,
It didn't get good reviews, but anybody who knows, and I've heard several people who are very clearly, versed in all this stuff, and they say there's a lot of truth to that movie. And whether you call it the Anunnaki, the reptilians, or some other group, there are negative ETs that are advanced because the negatives are allowed to go up to a certain point. So they are advanced, more advanced than us, and they're potentially manipulating us, potentially, you see signs of this everywhere. Like talk about the cabal. I don't think it's just human. When you really see the worst of the worst of humanity, it literally does not seem human. It seems, some people might say demonic, but if you know about the reptilians and you know the characteristics of some of these groups, you go, oh, it could just be them, possessing these people.
I know what Michelle was is going to respond to what you just said. He is going to say like there are two things. One is about the grace. He received the telepathic messages from Tao, and he revealed it publicly during a lecture in 1995 in Atlanta. And he said that the Tao told him that the grace also came from Category 1 planet. They
Mm,
did implant on like 150 people or so on Earth by that time, just to observe us, to see how we respond to the same issues that they had been encountering, which is the increasingly decreased immune system. Because we have been losing our immune system since 1948, and had they had the same problem, and they're a dying race. And they did the implants just to monitor us, and there's absolutely no need to worry about the implants because Tao and their people have been watching their activities closely just to ensure that no harm is caused on us. And the second point is that when Michelle was asked about the landing on the moon, and he said we were worn down from the moon. So that's why we are told we haven't been back on the moon for 50 years or so, even though with more advanced technologies and lower costs of going on the moon. We did land on the moon, but we were worn down by the ETs because we were not ready, because we would pollute the places we visit outside Earth. So if they prevent us from going back